Do you hate being in debt? Well, let me ask you this. What do you think it would feel like being completely debt-free? Well, I just read a study in the Journal of Consumer Research of the different approaches people use to get out of debt, and there was a clear winner. Let's talk getting out of debt. Coming up. Welcome to the channel. This channel is all about personal finance and investment. Now, in this video, we're going to talk about getting the heck out of debt. Did you know the average American family has over $6,000 in credit card debt? You might be thinking, hey man, $6,000, that ain't so bad, right? Because a lot of folks have it way worse than that. And do you know the average new car loan is like 35 grand? That's average. The average used car loan right now is like 21 grand. Dude, that's crazy. So in this video, we're going to talk about getting out of debt. Now, I recently read a study from the Journal of Consumer Research. You know, did you read that one? Do you get that one monthly? But anyway, I read a study about different approaches people use to get out of debt. And there was a clear winner among them. So we're going to talk about the different ways people try to get out of debt, which one the study found was the best. And then I'm going to tell you what I think is the best way, which is better than I think than all of them. If you can swing it, I think that's the way to do it. But before we talk about just paying everything all off, let's just clarify that not all debt is bad, right? To me, any debt you take on that's an investment or is going to get you forward in life might not be such a bad thing. For instance, a mortgage, I think a mortgage, in general, I think a mortgage is a great idea. They're usually low interest loans and the property appreciates over time. You gotta live somewhere anyway, right? You might as well buy the place you're living in, build some equity, and not just throw all that money away. And what about higher education, right? You want to be a software engineer? That's a pretty good job, software engineer. So maybe investing in school to go to school for a software engineer, maybe that's a pretty good investment, right? Borrowing money for that's not such a bad idea. Or what about starting a business? Man, as long as you're putting that money to work, I think borrowing money is not such a bad thing, but you do want to check out your interest rates, of course. You don't want to overpay. Now, speaking of overpaying, right? So we're talking about consumer debt, right? Clearly, we're talking about things like the credit cards and the super high interest auto loans and those sorts of things. Have you ever wondered why it's so easy to get a credit card? Well, it's because the banks are making a killing, man. They are making a killing off you. I mean, how would you like to have an investment where you have a guaranteed 20% or so return? That's a pretty good return. Now, paying off debt itself, you know, it's no easy task, man. Especially if you're only going to pay that minimum amount. Have you seen on the credit card where it says if you pay the minimum amount, you're like, you know, paying for life as opposed to if you increase your payment? So the first thing you're going to have to acknowledge is, in general, you're going to have to accelerate payments. You're going to have to pay more than what the minimum due is. But we're going to talk about 3 approaches that I read in that study. And then, like I said, I'm going to give you the approach that I have. I think it's better if you can do it. But first, let's just talk about the journal article, right? So let's just say you've got 3 credit cards. You've got the same balance on each one. Make it $1,000 on each of the 3 different credit cards. But one credit card has a 10% interest rate, one has a 15% interest rate, one has a 20% interest rate, right? Now, the approach that most people use is what's called the dispersion method, which means that you pay your minimum across every one of them, and then for each one of those credit cards, you just pay a little extra on each one. So, you know, maybe if you're going to pay an extra $100, you pay an extra $33.33, let's say, on the one with the 10% rate, $33.33 on the one with the 15% rate, and $33.34 on the one the 20% interest rate. So you just split it across the board and just pay a little bit more each time. Now, they found that this was like the worst approach of all. And I think this is what most people do, just pay a little bit extra on each one. Because the problem is, if you're just putting a little bit more, just trying to get that balance paid down, it's split across like 3 cards. So you really just don't see any effect at all. It's just discouraging, right? It's just discouraging and it's not very successful. The next approach, let's talk about, is the Avalanche approach. Now, the Avalanche approach, you order your debts, right, you make it a hierarchy according to the interest rate. So you pay the highest interest rate, that card, off first, and you pay the others, you just pay the minimum payment. So again, if you have 3 credit cards, $1,000 on each one, with a 10% rate, 15% rate, 20% rate, first you would pay, you make sure you don't go into collections, right? So you pay the minimum on your 10%, your 15%, your 20%, but say you had that extra $100, you put it towards the 20%. Now, mathematically, this is the best way to do it because over the long run, this is the way you're going to pay the least in interest over time. But they found it was not the most successful way. Even though you were paying the least over time, it was still just too discouraging for people, right? Because I guess you don't see it happen as fast. You just get discouraged. So they found that one was not as successful as the most successful approach they found, which is what's called the Snowball method. Now, the Snowball method, you take those same 3 credit cards, let's say the 1,000, 1,000, 1,000, where you have your 10% rate, 15% rate, and 20% rate. But in this approach, the Snowball approach, you pay the 10% off first, then the 15%, then the 20%. So you start with the lowest rate. Now, even though you end up paying more interest over time compared to that Avalanche method, the study found that more people stayed motivated to actually pay the debt off. Because the thing is, you can actually see it working. So you can see the debt being paid off and you want to keep going, right? So I think that makes pretty good sense. So I think of the 3, I think that's the approach I would use. Here's what I would do, right? So, but let me ask you this. Before I tell you my favorite approach for paying off debt, let me just ask one thing. And that is, if you think you've gotten any value out of this video, I would just simply ask you to give me a like. It'll help me spread my videos to others so we can get people out of debt and get them investing so they can get out from underneath the man, right? So here's what I would do, and I don't know if this is going to work for you or not, and it's going to partly depend on your credit score. What I would do is I would open up another credit card, and I would specifically look for one with a low APR on balance transfers. Check this out. Dude, you can get some killer deals right now. Look at this. Here is the Citi Diamond Preferred Card. 0% intro APR on purchases. Don't be purchasing, but on balance transfers for 18 months. Dude, 0% for 18 months. I think you probably have to pay a couple percent to get it transferred on there, I would guess, but 0% over 18 months. Dude, if you could consolidate all of your credit card debt onto one and have 0% for 18 months, you know how fast you can pay that off? Dude, that would be awesome. Here's another card. Here's the Citi Double Cash Card. 18-month balance transfer, 0% interest. 18 months, 0% interest. Here's another one. The Discover It card. Right? Discover It balance transfer. 0% on purchases 6 months. 0% on balance transfers for 18 months. Right? Here's one. Here is the Bank of America credit card. 0%. For 18 billing cycles on purchases and any balance transfers within 60 days. Here's another one. Check this out. Here's the U.S. Bank. 0%. 20 billing cycles on purchases and balance transfers. And there's others. So I think if you can qualify one of these cards, I mean, one challenge is they do require a little bit higher credit score. So it can be a bit of a challenge getting some of these cards if you're just maxed out on all your different credit cards. So you might have to do maybe, let's say, that Snowball method until you can get the credit score a little bit better, then get the rest of it over onto one of these balance transfer 0% 18-month babies, right? It's not all doom and gloom. There are ways to get out of debt. Just pick one of the plans, stay with it. And I tell you what, why don't you stay with this channel, and I will see you in the next video.